She overheard one phone call the night before her wedding and vanished without a trace. What she discovered, it changed everything. Let's start. My name's Sarah and I'm 26. For the past 3 years, I was in a relationship with a guy named Jake. We met in Ridge Hill, a quiet town where everybody knows everybody. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but we made it work. We laughed a lot, fought sometimes, and learned to grow together. 6 months ago, Jake proposed. I said yes. By then, our lives had already changed forever. A year earlier, I found out I was pregnant. It wasn't planned. Jake was shocked, and he made it clear from the start. He didn't want to be a dad. He pleaded with me to consider other options. But I knew what I wanted. I was keeping the baby, or babies as it turned out. Twin boys. Jake wasn't happy about it. We had long, painful conversations. I told him he could walk away, and I meant it. I wasn't asking for child support or anything from him. I just knew, deep in my heart, that I was ready to be a mum. I'd raise them myself if I had to. Surprisingly, he stayed. He stepped up during my pregnancy. He came to appointments, helped me set up the nursery, and was by my side in the delivery room. After the twins were born, Jake became a great father. Or at least, that's what I thought. Looking back, maybe I wanted to believe in the version of him I saw. The hands-on dad, the supportive partner, the man who grew from scared boy to steady father. When he proposed 6 months after the twins were born, it felt like everything had come full circle. The rough start was behind us. We were building a family. We started planning the wedding right away. My parents were over the moon. They loved Jake. Everyone did. He had this easy charm, a way of making you feel like he really cared. We picked a venue just outside Ridge Hill, found a photographer, hired a caterer. The dress was beautiful, and the guest list was packed. I was truly happy. I thought I was getting everything I ever wanted: love, family, and a future. But I didn't know that behind that perfect facade, something much darker was brewing, and it would all come crashing down the night before our wedding. That night changed everything. One overheard phone call shattered the life I thought I had. I realized that love, when forced, isn't love at all, and the truth can hide for a long time until it can't. This is the story of how I walked away from the man I thought I'd spend forever with. It's the story of heartbreak, survival, and ultimately, peace. And it all began with one forgotten phone call. The night before the wedding, Jake was staying with his parents, just a few blocks away. It was tradition, something his mother insisted on. I was home alone with the boys. They were finally asleep, and I was sipping tea, trying to calm my nerves. My phone rang. It was Jake. He sounded sweet, nervous, but excited. He told me he loved me, said he couldn't wait to marry me tomorrow. I got emotional. We exchanged a few tender words, and then we said our goodnights. I waited for him to hang up, but he didn't. At first, I thought nothing of it. Jake had a habit of fumbling with his phone. Then I heard his dad's voice. He asked, "Were you talking to Sarah?" Jake said yes, but his voice had changed. He sounded off, distant, tired. I should have hung up, but I didn't. Something told me to listen. His dad asked him if he still felt the same way he did 2 days ago. Jake sighed and said yeah. Then his mum joined in. She said that no matter what, the wedding had to happen. Jake protested. He said he was tired of being pushed into things he wasn't ready for, that he'd always done what everyone else wanted. And then his dad said something that hit me like a punch to the gut. "We can't make you marry someone you don't love, but we can cut you out of the will." My heart sank. Jake's voice cracked. He said it wasn't fair, that he was being forced into marriage just to keep his inheritance, that no one cared what he was ready for, not me, not them. He said the twins scared him, that he hadn't wanted them, that we'd all pressured him to stay, and now he was being pressured to marry me too. I was frozen, numb, listening to the man I thought I was going to marry tell his parents that he never really wanted this life with me, that he was doing it for money, for them, because he was afraid. And then he stormed out, left his phone behind. I hung up before I could hear anything else. In that moment, something in me broke, not with anger, not with hate, with heartbreak, because I realized I'd been loving a man who was only pretending to love me back. The man who held my hand during contractions, the man who asked me to be his wife. It had all been an act, and I couldn't go through with it anymore. I sat there on the couch, staring at the phone in my hand, my breath catching in my chest. My mind raced, but my body didn't move. I felt numb. I kept thinking, how could he do this? How could he fake so much for so long? The twins were asleep. I looked at their peaceful faces and felt my chest tighten. They deserved better than a dad who stayed because of money, and I deserved better than a husband who didn't love me. There was no decision to make anymore. I couldn't marry Jake. Quietly, I packed a bag. Just a few things. Diapers, clothes, formula. I got the boys into their car seats as gently as I could. It was late, but I had to go. I needed space. I needed time to think. I drove an hour outside Ridge Hill and checked into a small hotel. It was past midnight when we arrived. The boys were fussy, so I rocked them to sleep again. Then I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my clothes, and cried. Before I fell asleep, I sent a group text to all the wedding guests and family. I wrote, "The wedding is off. I'll explain everything later. Please do not contact Jake or his family. This decision is final." That was all. I didn't owe anyone a full explanation that night. The next day, instead of walking down the aisle in a white dress, I was sitting on a hotel bed in leggings and a hoodie, eating cold leftovers and watching cartoons with my babies. That was the only place I wanted to be. I didn't answer calls or texts. I didn't post anything. I just stayed in that room with my sons, crying sometimes, laughing with them other times. They were too young to know what had happened, and I was thankful for that. The venue, catering, flowers, Jake's parents had paid for everything. I felt no guilt about that. It had been their idea, their pressure, their dream. Let them deal with the fallout. That day was supposed to be my wedding, but it became something else entirely. The first day I reclaimed my future. After a full day at the hotel, I knew I couldn't stay there forever. I needed to face reality. The first thing I did was drop my sons off at my parents' house. I didn't want them to see me pack up our old home. It had been full of dreams. Now it was just walls. When I arrived at the house Jake and I had shared, he was already there. Standing outside, he looked like he hadn't slept. I expected that. "Where the heck have you been?" he asked. His voice cracked, like he was relieved, not angry. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at him. Really looked. The man who once promised me the world now looked like a stranger. "I heard everything," I finally said. He blinked, confused for a moment. Then realization hit him. The color drained from his face. "Sarah, it's not what you think." I cut him off. "You don't have to explain. I heard what you said. I heard what your parents said. That's enough." He was silent. I walked past him, into the house. He stayed outside. I grabbed the essentials. Clothes for me and the boys, diapers, baby formula, some documents. I didn't need anything else. The memories were already too heavy. When I walked back out, Jake looked like he wanted to say something. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I didn't stop. That was the last time I saw him for a while. My parents were waiting with open arms. They didn't press for details. I told them everything the next day. They were heartbroken, but supportive. They loved Jake once too, but they loved me more. I started calling lawyers the day after. I wanted full custody. I wanted peace. I wanted out. 3 days passed. I hadn't heard a word from Jake. Not a call, not a text. And honestly, it didn't surprise me. I was finally starting to feel clarity, not sadness. It was as if everything had snapped into focus after a year of emotional haze. Then, suddenly, Jake showed up at my parents' house. My dad answered the door, and I could hear the tension from the other room. He wasn't yelling, but his tone was firm, protective. I peeked out and saw Jake on the porch, disheveled and anxious. He asked to speak to me, said it was important. I didn't want to let him in. The boys had just fallen asleep, and I didn't want them disturbed. So I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. He started talking immediately, apologizing, rambling about how sorry he was. He said he loved me, that he loved the kids, that what I heard wasn't the full picture. He insisted he just felt overwhelmed, and that he did want us, he just didn't want the pressure. I let him talk. I didn't interrupt. Then I told him the truth. I couldn't trust him. Not after what I heard, not after realizing that he'd been lying to me for over a year. He asked if we could try again. Not rush into anything. Just rebuild. No pressure from his parents. No wedding right away. just us and the kids. I didn't say no. I didn't say yes either. I told him I needed time, but deep down, I already knew the answer. The more time passed, the clearer my decision became. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to try again. I wanted to move forward, and I wanted to do it without Jake. I started looking for lawyers to help me file for full custody. I didn't want anything from him, not even child support. I just wanted a clean break. I found a lawyer I trusted, and we got started on the paperwork. But before I could serve anything officially, Jake reached out again. This time, it wasn't apologies. It was anger. He told me I had no right to cut him out of the kids' lives, that he was their father and deserved to be there. It was a complete shift from the man who had said he wasn't ready to be a dad just a week earlier. I tried to keep calm. We met at a public restaurant. I didn't want to be alone with him. He was already upset when he arrived. I could see it in his eyes. We sat down, and he jumped right in. Said I was being unfair. Said he changed his mind. That he wanted to be there for the twins. I asked him what changed. What really changed? That's when he admitted it. His parents had found out I was filing for full custody. They threatened to cut him off again if he didn't fight back. Same pattern, same pressure. Still no backbone. I told him that was exactly why he shouldn't have custody. Not because I wanted to punish him, but because our sons deserved stability. They deserved someone who wanted them for the right reasons. Jake didn't respond. He just stared down at the table. I left before things could escalate. I had my answer. The next day, Jake sent me one last message. He proposed something I never expected. He said if I agreed to joint custody, he'd split his inheritance with me once his parents passed away. That was it. The final straw. I was stunned. Disgusted. After everything, after admitting he only fought for custody because of pressure and money, now he was trying to buy my forgiveness? Buy access to the kids? No. I blocked him. I blocked his parents. I made sure every line of communication was cut. My lawyer filed the papers. I didn't want his money, his name, or his influence near my children. Once the paperwork was officially filed, something in me shifted. I felt lighter, not because things were magically better, but because I had finally taken back control. I spent the next few days focused on stability. I found a smaller apartment near my parents. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. I didn't want reminders of that old life everywhere I looked. This was a fresh start. My parents helped me move, and my dad installed safety gates and baby-proofed the place. My mum helped with unpacking and decorating. They were the quiet heroes in all of this. I hired a nanny. I was lucky enough to afford one for now, thanks to my job, some savings, and help from my parents. It wasn't ideal, but it was necessary. I had to keep working, and the twins needed consistency. Jake didn't reach out again after that message. Not once. I'd like to believe it was because he finally understood, but I'll never really know. Either way, I didn't care. I needed space, and I had it. Some friends started asking questions. A few even criticized me when they finally found out what happened. Are you sure you're doing the right thing? Maybe he just panicked. Kids need a father. I shut that down quickly. Because no, kids don't need just a father. They need one who wants to be there. One who puts them first, not their inheritance. I wasn't being cruel. I was protecting my boys. And honestly, I was protecting myself. I'd spent too long bending over backward to make a fake future seem real. I was done performing. And when I looked at my sons sleeping in their cribs, giggling during tummy time or babbling nonsense words, none of it felt like a tragedy anymore. It felt like a second chance, not just to raise them right, but to live with honesty, with peace. There were hard nights, of course. Nights I cried in the shower. Nights when loneliness echoed louder than I expected. But even those moments reminded me that I was free. I wasn't trapped in someone else's fantasy. I was living mine, even if it came the hard way. One morning I got a call from my lawyer. Jake had signed the documents. He gave up his parental rights. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just sat down and exhaled. It was over. Not the pain, not the healing, but the tug of war. The second guessing. The constant fear that someone would pull the rug out from under me. I was the sole legal guardian of my kids, and from that day forward I swore I would never let anyone jeopardize their security again, not even someone who once told me he loved me. With Jake officially out of our lives, it felt like a new chapter had begun. Not the one I had once imagined, but one I could finally write myself. There were no more late-night fights, no more tiptoeing around his moods, no more lies to make things look good from the outside. It was just me and my boys, figuring it out together. We got into a rhythm. Mornings were chaotic, but full of joy. Breakfast with messy hands, little feet running around in footy pajamas, the cartoon theme songs that I now knew by heart. I still had to juggle work, errands, and cleaning, but I didn't dread coming home anymore. My parents came by often. My mum would hold the boys so I could get an uninterrupted shower. My dad brought groceries and fixed anything I hadn't gotten around to. They were the quiet heroes in all of this. But what surprised me the most was how strong I was becoming. Not overnight, not perfectly. But slowly, I started reclaiming parts of myself I'd buried under stress, compromise, and trying to make a doomed relationship work. I started therapy. Best decision I made for myself. I needed space to unpack everything. The gaslighting, the emotional fatigue, the shame I hadn't even realized I was carrying. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't asking someone else what they needed. I was asking myself, what do I want? What do I need? What makes me happy? That question changed everything, because I realized I didn't miss Jake. I missed the idea of a family, but what I had now was real. It wasn't glossy. It wasn't wrapped in ribbons, but it was mine. I took the twins to a park one weekend, just me, a stroller, and a packed diaper bag. And while we sat on a blanket under the sun, I watched them play and realized something. I had done it. I didn't walk away from love. I walked towards self-respect. I didn't ruin a family, I saved one. Because family isn't built on forced vows or bribed custody. It's built on showing up. Loving consistently. Choosing your people, even when it's hard. And I chose my sons. Every time. That day I took a picture of them laughing on the grass. It's my favorite photo now, not because it's perfectly lit or edited, but because it reminds me of what it cost to earn that moment. Peace, strength, truth, and the courage to walk away. It's been months now since the day I was supposed to walk down the aisle. In a different world, I'd be someone's wife. I'd be living in that big house with the big dreams that never really belonged to me. But I'm not, and I'm grateful every single day. The old version of me, that woman who accepted silence as peace, who mistook pretending for love, is gone. She left the night I packed a bag, buckled my kids into their car seats, and drove away. I've changed. I still wear the ring Jake gave me, but on a chain around my neck, not as a promise to him. As a reminder of what I overcame, of what I won't tolerate again. It's not a symbol of heartbreak anymore. It's proof that I trusted myself, even when it hurt. I've also learned how powerful it is to say no, to love with boundaries, to protect my peace, to create a home that's free of emotional warfare. My boys are thriving. They're safe. They're loved. And they are enough. There are still moments where grief sneaks in, when I see couples at the park, or when someone asks if I'm married. I don't lie. I just smile and say, it didn't work out, but we're okay. Because we are. We're better than okay. The other day, my oldest boy called me hero. He didn't know what it meant. He'd heard it on a cartoon. But I cried anyway, because deep down I needed to hear that. Not because I'm perfect, not because I did everything right, but because I didn't stay when it would have been easier to settle. I left. I protected my children. I chose the harder road. And now, I'm writing a new ending. One where love isn't a lie whispered under pressure. One where no one's happiness is dependent on someone else's guilt. One where a woman stands tall, unbroken, holding 2 toddlers on her hips and peace in her heart. To every woman who feels stuck in a story she didn't write, listen to your gut. It knows. To every mother afraid to start over, your kids don't need perfect. They need present. They need you. And to anyone who wonders if leaving is failure, it's not. Sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you'll ever do. So this is my final update. I'm not waiting for closure. I am the closure. This isn't the life I planned, but it's the one I'm proud to live. Would you have walked away too? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more raw, real stories about love, lies, and second chances, hit that subscribe button. Would you